Well, here we are in the fourth week together. We are almost, can you believe it or not, halfway through already. I know it goes by really fast. This week you have your event story that is due, and I hope you've had a chance to arrange your event that you're going to cover. Maybe you did it last week and you're just getting your pieces together. If not, be sure that you are covering an event this week and give yourself the time that you need to write the story and turn it in by Sunday night. This week we're also going to be diving into some of your business story, which is due this week, and next week you have a lot that's back to back. So next week we're going to be turning in your business story, and we'll cover that in our course material. But this week we're also talking about headlines. Now last week we talked about your lead writing, that first sentence, and it's a sentence, a full subject verb, full sentence. This week we're talking about headlines, and you'll begin to see the difference in how these are structured and how they're used to capture attention and draw your reader or your audience into the story. So let's go ahead and just dive real quick into the course material. We're also talking about feature writing. Now it might seem kind of question in your mind, like how does this all blend together? We had our event story, which is more news style writing. We had our character profile that was due first, and now we're going to be getting into our business style. Well, this is really a nice place where you can start to blend in the elements of traditional news writing and feature writing. So you want to pay attention to the feature writing lecture that I give here, what are the different literary techniques, and begin to absorb and maybe apply some of those principles in your business story, because it's really all about telling a story and making it relevant to your reader. And your book covers a lot of that. We'll get to that in just a minute. But so you have your feature writing here. Some examples, some great examples of some good solid feature writing that is news related. It has some news element. It's factual. It's obviously it's not a fictional story, but it's relevant to readers. So those are some great examples of some feature writing. And then we talk about Tom Wolfe and kind of how he was kind of a leader in this new journalism, as you read about. The business story, we have another PowerPoint on the basics of business story writing, and this is where you can begin to really to craft in that feature style writing into a business story. You can do a business profile. You can do someone, maybe they're launching a business. You're going to be going to, similar to your event story, making arrangements to cover or to write about a specific business that you might have a connection to, or that you know someone. Maybe it's a local restaurant that's starting up, or a pop-up business or something like that. So begin to think about those things as you prepare for next week and what you want to write about. And then, of course, we have our social media aspect of the course, which is always a part of your assignments. I want you to pay attention to the Headlines 101 lecture. And now, I call it 101 because it seems basic, but I want you to pay attention. There's some 4 key points in a good headline that you want to use in your story crafting, in your publishing of your blog. Something that we discussed already is the importance of the headline on your blog stories. Be sure that you're giving your stories a strong headline, and you'll learn more about how to do this in this PowerPoint. And a lot of the feedback I give you on your blogs has to do with your headline and how you're capturing attention, how you're leading people into your story. So this week we have your event story that's due, and of course your corresponding social media write-up, how you're going to promote that story, and your blog post and how you're presenting that story online. And of course you have your grammar quiz and your headline writing exercise. Now again, think in headlines, how you're going to write these different headlines. You're going to read a story, and you're going to give this story a headline based on what you read. So a little bit assignment heavy this week, but I promise you it gets a little bit easier as you go on. So the next few weeks are full, but again, as always, if you have questions or if you have any concerns, you can always shoot me an email. Real quick on your reading, we have Chapter 6 and Chapter 8, and a lot of it is kind of reviewing what you've been reading. But we talk about Chapter 6 talks about, it's very short. You'll be happy. It's a very short chapter, very easy to get through. It's a good review of the basic news story structure, the inverted pyramid. Some of this you covered for your event story. The lead sentence in the graph, again, is the most important element. Again, some of this is review, but it's reiterating these points. How to use quotes, indirect quotes and direct quotes, using the actual quote marks, when to use them, when to paraphrase them. And of course, it shouldn't need to be said, but I always say it, Never make up quotes. Now, I can't really go back and check if you're making something up. You can do that for an assignment. I strongly advise you not to do that because that can get you into trouble. Of course, in this class, you don't want to make quotes up. Never make up quotes. You've heard stories of journalists who have made up stories, and they made up quotes. Famous stories like Jason Blair, Stephen Glass, making up stories. You don't want to ever get into that. So, maintain your integrity. Never make things up, especially when you're writing news stories. And lastly, your Chapter 8, feature writing. Now he talks a little bit more about story structure and the narrative approach. This is again where it's you can be more creative and kind of break out of that box of the traditional inverted pyramid news style writing. But the narrative approach, setting up the dramatic arch, that dramaturgical style that he is talking about, your author is talking about in your book. And then there's other story structures that he gets into really briefly. The bottom line is to tell a story, but make it relevant to your readers. You want to tell a good story, but you have to always incorporate how it applies to them or what's the impact on them. So as you're writing these stories, always keep your audience in mind. What is the news value or what is the impact on them? And that is it for this week. A really short overview, but if you have any questions, as always, please shoot me an email. I pray you all have a great week.